You mentioned the production. So when does this become apparent? Is it during the process? Is it beforehand that you think, okay, I want to try a little bit more of this style or more these kind of beats? Or
To be honest, like once I do a lot of analytical thinking and research before the album. You know, like I think a lot of musicians can relate to this. When you're in that process, you stop listening to certain things because you're kind of open, your antenna's open, and you know, like if you're listening to Daft Punk, it's gonna get in there.
right.
If you're listening to Chuck D, it's gonna get in there some kind of way. So I think you kind of like shut out a lot of outside things, and then you really intensely study certain things. Like for me, it was, you know, like The Weeknd or the internet or, you know, Drake was a huge influence on this album, Beyonce, self-titled album. So those kind of things, I would sort of pull elements that I liked and I wanted to use and things that I thought worked and resonated with me. For example, what I like about Drake a lot is that, you know, him and his producer will sample all kind of stuff, but they make it sound like him, you know, and you can hear a lot of different styles on this album, but to me at least, it's all comes together because it's all me.
Right.
Yeah.
And so while you're doing this, are you worried because you have an audience and people have certain, it's inevitable, have certain expectations? So is that in your mind while you're making that album?
No. Yeah, Ralph Ellison, the great writer, once said that if a young writer is concerned about what critics are going to think before he starts the book, he's already failed. And I think that's so true. My purpose is to make the work and to do it as in a true fashion as possible, to honor what comes through me. I don't really have a choice about what comes through me. You know what I mean? It comes through me. It's like, okay, it's time to honor Billie Holiday. And I'm like, okay, that's what we're going to do. I'm not sitting down thinking, well, I don't know, are people going to get nervous, or maybe it's going to be too not cool for the cool kids, or on the other side, like maybe the jazz people aren't going to like the beats. If I thought about that, I'd never make an album. I'd just put it out, and you know, hopefully people trust my name and trust Blue Note as a label and as a brand. And say, okay, like, you let me give this 30 seconds before I just flush it down the toilet, you know, with my perception, you know.
But I can imagine as a public figure in a way, that can be quite difficult because especially with social media these days, people will kind of force their opinion upon you.
Yeah, true.
So how do you deal with this?
Lately, I've gone by what Miles Davis told all of his sidemen when they got bad reviews, you know, Herbie and Wayne, you know what I mean? If you can imagine, Tony Williams, they got bad reviews in Europe and they were so hurt, and Miles was like, of course, you know, it's different, we're changing it. And he said, you know, if you believe the good reviews, you have to believe the bad reviews. So now I don't believe any reviews. Reviews are good for business. Even a bad review is good for business sometimes. Actually, a review is like just a part of the machine moving. What matters to me is like when somebody comes up to me and says, man, you know, I haven't seen you perform in 2 years, and last year was one of the hardest years of my life. And I found one of your songs, whatever it is, you know, come to my door, do you feel Let It Fall? And I played that song every day, and it got me through. Like, when I hear that, that's when I know, like, I'm doing the right thing. And, like, even if I sold, you know, 10 copies of an album, if I was able to get that message from somebody on a spiritual level, I know that it's valid, you know what I mean?
And at the same time, does kind of making music and performing it live, does that have the same cathartic effect on yourself?
I don't know if it's cathartic, but it's inspiring, you know. I think, I don't know, like I hate to sound like anti-intellectual about it, but it's just like, it's like what I do.
Sure.
Like it's like if I'm home for a week, I could be out on the road for 6 months, and be like, all right, I'm ready to go home now. And I'd be home for a week, and then I'm ready to go on the road. Like something inside of me just lives to travel. It might be part of a nomadic DNA that I have. Seriously, I don't know, you know. I'm definitely from a people of wanderers, you know. And it just inspires me to no end to like meet people, talk about culture, talk about art, talk about it in a realistic way, talk about it in a financial way. It's my entire world, you know. I think about it all the time.
So did you take to touring and being on the stage for even when you started out? Did you take to it very well?
Oh yeah, loved it.
Do you remember your first show?
I remember my first time playing Paradiso.
Okay.
I was upstairs in the small room. It was like Brownswood Presents, my first label with Giles Peterson. So we had me with Elan Meller, great pianist, upstairs, and then I sang a song with the Soil and Pimp Sessions, the great Japanese jazz band from Tokyo, downstairs, and then Giles Peterson DJ'd, and that was an amazing night. And for me, we had the entire building full of music, you know.
Right.
That was super cool.
And finally then, well, Love in a Time of Madness was only released quite recently, but is your mind then still with that album, or do you quickly move on to the next project?
Both. You know, I mean, I'm not, there's three phases of an album for me, right? There's the concept and the pre-production and the writing, which takes a long time, probably the longest amount of time. Then there's the recording, which hopefully doesn't take a long time because it's very expensive. I think this all in all took about 3 months. And then there's the touring, which can take from 6 months to 2 years or 3 years, depending on how long you're prepared to do it. So, you know, my focus is very much on the touring, the set, making sure the music connects with people, making sure the sound is awesome, making sure the visuals look right, making sure my band is amazing, making sure I look cool. And in some part of my mind, yeah, I'm always creating and thinking about, you know, a lot of different projects, creative writing, music, collaborations. It's kind of always, thankfully, always bubbling, you know.
Well, I'm gonna end on one thing then, because I came across something where I read that you had aspirations to write a novel. Is that right?
I very much do, yeah. Every year I keep saying, all right, I'm gonna set aside 6 months to do this, and then I have a new album out, and I'm just touring all year. I have a strong concept for a crime novel based in New York, and it's plotted out, the chapters are plotted out, so I have the notes and the framework for the book, but I've only written about like 50 pages of actual text, which at this point would need to be severely edited and start over. So, you know, I'm gonna say, hopefully I have some time probably next year to like really focus on that, and because I would like to do, I don't want a career as a writer, but I would like to have one published novel before I die. So hopefully I have a few years.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for your time.